triskaidekaphobia. Triskaidekaphobia. Something like that. Triskaidekaphobia. The fear of 13. I swear. You think I would listen to people, like I would look up pronunciation before I did these episodes, right? Anyway, this phobia, the fear of 13, is real enough that architects and corporations adjust designs around it. Is that just coincidence? I don't think it's just coincidence. That's belief shaping behavior, guys. You ever notice how Friday the 13th doesn't feel like a date? It feels like a warning. Like the calendar itself is giving you that side eye. Your coffee spills, your car won't start, a weird phone call comes in. And even if nothing happens, you still catch yourself thinking, okay, but what if something does? That's the real power behind Friday the 13th and the legend. It doesn't need proof. It just needs a tiny crack in your certainty. Because this isn't really about bad luck. It's about how a story becomes a spell, how a symbol moves through centuries and it hops cultures, picks up where new meaning, like burrs on a wool coat walking through the woods. It ends up living in your head rent-free, man. And right now, with the world already feeling a little twitchy, right? People don't just enjoy superstitions anymore. They freaking cling to them. Or the other side of that is they mock them and or they obsess over them. But either way, they're fed. They feed them. So, welcome back to Broadcasting Seeds. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, and tonight we're going to step into a topic that sounds harmless until you stare at it entirely too long. The Friday the 13th legend and why it still works on modern minds. Even in a world with satellites and smartphones, and trust the science bumper stickers everywhere, right? This is going to be part of our reoccurring segment in that I'm calling it's Forbidden Files Friday, something like that. So it's either way, we're doing this something about like this type of stuff every Friday. We've done some Atlantis, we've done the floods. It might not be Friday when you're hearing this, right? But that's kind of the point. The mood doesn't wait for the calendar. These are episodes where we just open the folder marked probably nothing and realize it's got fingerprints all over it. So here's the question we're chasing. Why did this one, Friday the 13th, why did this superstition survive? I mean, we've got movies, we've got all kinds of stuff. Now, why do some people believe it? That's easy. Humans are meaning machines, right? We connect dots, we turn coincidence into pattern all the time about everything. The better question is why this pattern stuck so hard that hotels skip the 13th floor. Some airports avoid gate 13. Grown adults still say, don't jinx it. Like they're negotiating with reality or something, right? So Friday the 13th isn't scary because it's cursed, necessarily. It's scary because it proves how easily a story can move into your nervous system and start making decisions for you. Like people give it consideration. So in this episode, we're going to peel this thing back in layers, okay? Ancient fear, religious symbolism, mythic patterning, and modern media. I brought up the movie. And the uncomfortable possibility that luck is sometimes just the name we give to forces we don't understand yet. If you're the kind of person who's felt that weird little chill on certain dates with no logical reason, you're not alone. And if you're the kind of person who rolls their eyes at all this crap, good. Keep that energy. Bring it with you. We're going deeper either way. So before we step into it, do me a favor, like the episode, share the episode with somebody who loves strange history or cultural mysteries, and leave a review for the show. This is how this show grows. It tells the platforms, and that's what I'll say, hey, this is worth spreading. One more thing, if you are a researcher, investigator, creator, or you've collected local stories around topics like this, I'm always open to collaboration. If you've got something solid, I really want you to bring it. So let's move on. Section 1. The Friday the 13th legend wasn't born. It was assembled. Okay? Let me hit you with something that messes with people the first time they hear it. There is no ancient scroll that says, beware of Friday the 13th. No prophet carved it in stone. No Viking skald declared it the day of doom. No medieval pope issued a bull against it. The Friday the 13th legend wasn't born in a single dramatic moment. It's an assembly. And that matters, right? Because when something is assembled, it means it has layers. It's layered. It's deliberate or not. Piece by piece, story by story, legend, fear, all of it gathered. Let's start with the number. 13 has been uncomfortable for a long time. In Christian tradition, there were 13 at the Last Supper. The betrayal happened inside that number. Then the crucifixion happened on a Friday. Pause. Well, we're not talking about proof of a curse. We're talking about symbolic stacking, right? Then you go north, up to Scandinavia and Norse mythology. 12 gods at a feast. An uninvited 13th guest shows up. Who is that? We all know him as Loki, the trickster, chaos agent, right? The god of light dies. Wow. Different culture, same structure. Bottom line, order disrupted by the extra seat at the table. And humans remember patterns like that. We just do. We are pattern recognizers. Well, some of us are, but it's not the number 13 that scares us. It's what happens when something crosses from complete into too much. Now let's layer Friday into that. In Christian tradition, Friday was the day of execution. All over medieval Europe and parts, Friday was considered an unlucky day to begin voyages or even business. Sailors avoided launching ships on Fridays. Courts avoided certain rulings. But here's where it gets interesting. The combined fear of Friday the 13th doesn't really show up in documented form until the 19th century. And it doesn't explode until the 20th, which means This isn't purely ancient superstition. It's cultural amplification, okay? A 1907 financial thriller called Friday. The 13th centers around market panic tied to that date. Later, horror cinema brands it permanently with blood and hockey masks, right? Jason Voorhees, baby. So what happened? The older symbolic ingredients were they're already in the pantry just to put together and bake it all, right? Then modern media turned that oven on. And lately, people talk about memes like they're just funny images online. But memes existed long before the internet. They were ideas replicated. And the Friday the 13th legend became one of the most successful cultural memes in Western history. I mean, hotels skip the 13th floor, right? Not all, but a lot of them. Triskaidekaphobia. Triskaidekaphobia. Something like that. Triskaidekaphobia. The fear of 13. I swear. You think I would listen to people, like I would look up pronunciation before I did these episodes, right? Anyway, this phobia, the fear of 13, is real enough that architects and corporations adjust designs around it. I mean, is that just coincidence? I don't think it's just coincidence. That's belief shaping behavior, guys. I mean, here were Forbidden Files. Friday starts to lean forward. Okay. What else has been assembled like this? What other ideas feel ancient, but were layered carefully over time until they felt inevitable? Because once you see how Friday the 13th legend was built, you start noticing how narratives are constructed everywhere else. And that realization, that's where this gets uncomfortable. We're just getting started. Section 2. The Friday the 13th legend and the architecture of fear. Here's where it gets personal, folks. The Friday the 13th legend isn't powerful because it's historically airtight, of course. It's powerful because it hijacks your anticipation. Think about it. It's if nothing happened on a random Tuesday, you shrug. And if nothing happens on Friday the 13th, you think, well, good. See the difference? One is neutral. The other is relief. That's architecture. Fear architecture. And right now, people are starting to notice how easily narratives can be constructed and then amplified and embedded in the culture, politics, pandemics, financial markets, social movements. We've watched headlines shape emotion in real time. We've seen this. Friday the 13th is a miniature version of that phenomenon. It primes you. And once you're primed, your brain starts scanning. You drop your phone, the power flickers, a weird email comes through, and suddenly your nervous system whispers, see? Right? Superstition doesn't need evidence. It just needs timing. And the human brain it loathes randomness. We're pattern-seeking machines. Evolution rewarded us for spotting threats quickly. And if your ancestors heard a rustle in the grass and assumed it was the wind when it wasn't, they didn't pass on their genes. So we lean forward toward meaning, right? We lean toward that meaning. But here's a deeper layer. Why do so many superstitions cluster around thresholds? Midnight, crossroads, uh, forest edges, eclipses, and yes, specific dates. Thresholds are liminal spaces. And in folklore and in scriptural traditions too, liminal spaces are where boundaries get thin and normal rules just they wobble. That's why the number 13 feels disruptive. It crosses beyond 12, which symbolically represents order in many traditions, right? 12 tribes, 12 apostles, 12 months. 13 is excess. Friday is already weighed in Christian memory. Add the 13th position, and now you've got symbolic overflow. And Friday the 13th legend isn't just unlucky, it's narratively unstable, and instability creates attention. If you can convince people that a date is unstable, you don't need to control events. You just need them to watch harder. Now let's zoom out. Okay, this week, somewhere in the world, someone will delay a deal, cancel a trip, or hesitate to sign a contract because it's Friday the 13th. I just published a book today, but I did that. It's just one of those things. It's a spooky book. It's a thriller called The Last Witch Hunter's Journal. I did that on purpose because I leaned in, right? Not demons, not ghosts, not a machete-wielding camp counselor. Myth. And if myth can alter behavior at scale, then it has power. Not supernatural power necessarily, but cultural power, psychological power. If we can see clearly how the Friday the 13th legend was layered and reinforced, we have to ask what modern legends are being layered right now. What dates, what symbols, what coincidences are being framed for us? Forbidden Files Friday. We're not talking about paranoia. It's about pattern literacy. And we're about to take this one step further, because the real question isn't why Friday the 13th feels unlucky. It's why humans seem wired to expect disruption on certain days, even in the first place. And that takes us somewhere older than the Middle Ages. So, section 3, the Friday the 13th legend and the spiritual memory of chaos. So let's go deeper, because the Friday the 13th legend doesn't just live in folklore. It taps something older, something that feels almost freaking archetypal, right? Here's the question nobody asks out loud. Why do humans across cultures instinctually connect disorder with certain patterns of time? Not just this date, of course, right? But every time there's an eclipse, we just had a blood moon, the 7th year, the 40th day, midnight, right? Patterns go on. Why does time itself sometimes feel charged? Now, before anyone jumps to, okay, Bennett, we're going full mystic. Just stay with me, okay? This isn't about declaring dates cursed. It's about recognizing that civilizations have always mapped meaning onto calendars, right? And that meaning gets mapped long enough, it becomes emotional memory. The number 12 has historically represented order. Again, we'll go through it. 12 months, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles, 12 signs of the zodiac, right? 13 crosses beyond that structure. It's the step past completion. And in biblical symbolism, crossing boundaries often precedes testing, like testing wilderness moments, right? Betrayal, judgment, transition, not doom, transition. What if Friday the 13th doesn't represent evil, but just instability? And instability is what makes people nervous. And now let's add the day. Friday carries weight in Christian memory because of the crucifixion, execution, public humiliation, apparent defeat. But here's what's fascinating. Good Friday wasn't the end of the story. It was the turning point, which means Friday in biblical memory is tied to suffering before redemption. So when people talk about the Friday the 13th legend, they're often unknowingly reacting to a collision of symbolic instability and remembering suffering. Jesus was not the only one. That's potent, right? And symbols don't die just because society becomes secular. They go underground. They shift language. They hide inside pop culture. Then horror films come along and amplify the mood. Markets fluctuate on that day. And I mean, Black Friday, right? Media articles recycle the superstition. And the emotional wiring gets reinforced. So when you rehearse fear long enough, it doesn't need a reason anymore. It just needs a trigger. People start to question how much of culture is driven by subconscious patterning. Algorithms do it. Advertising does it. Political messaging does it all, right? They wouldn't, why wouldn't ancient symbolism do it too? Of course. The Friday the 13th legend becomes a case study in how spiritual memory and cultural repetition merge. Slightly unsettling thought, instinctively, marks certain times as unstable. What does that say about our collective memory of chaos? Is it just random superstition? Or is it the echo of something older, something humanity has always sensed at the edge, just the edge of order? I mean, we're not saying the date is cursed by any stretch of the imagination. It's about recognizing how easily time itself can be framed as fragile. And once time feels fragile, people feel fragile, which leads us to the final piece. Because if this legend was assembled, like we talked about earlier, and then amplified and then embedded, which it is, come on, who benefits from narratives that make people anticipate disruption? I mean, all right, wrapping things up. The Friday the 13th legend isn't about luck, it's about influence. So here we are. We pulled apart Friday the 13th legend piece by piece. I mean, there's some things that were left out, right? The Templars and a couple other, occult type things, but you guys get the point. The symbolic stacking, the mythic layering, the media amplification, and that all causes emotional wiring. And what did we actually find? Not a curse, not a demon hiding behind a calendar square, right? We found narrative power. Right now, headlines move markets and hashtags move culture. People are starting to notice how easily expectation shapes reality. If you tell millions of people that something is unstable, some percentage of them I mean, even if it's 10%, will act unstable. That's not mysticism or anything else. That's psychology. But psychology at scale starts to look like something way bigger, folks. Manipulation, anyone? If you can get a population to anticipate chaos, you don't need to create chaos. You just need to let them fill in the blanks. I mean, this is a mirror. It's an uncomfortable mirror that this episode holds up to humanity. And the Friday the 13th legend survived because it's portable, folks. It attaches to religion and mythology and literature, film, finance, to everyday conversation. It doesn't need proof. It just needs repetition. And repetition, as we said, builds memory. So here's the takeaway from this episode. Before you fear a date, ask who framed it. 9/11. It's another date. Ask who framed it. Before you dismiss a superstition, ask why it lasted. Before you laugh at someone who hesitates, ask what story you've internalized without realizing it. Because we all have them. We all do. And if you know someone who swears something weird always happens on Friday the 13th, send them this episode. Not to mock them, but to explore it together. Okay? I genuinely love to connect with people that want to collaborate in this space. And it just needs thoughtful, not sensational stuff, right? So reach out. If this episode made you think, unsettled you a little bit maybe, or helped you see patterns differently, take 10 seconds and like it, share it, leave a review wherever you're listening. That's how Broadcasting Seeds grows. That's how these conversations reach people who are quietly asking the same questions. Because this isn't just about the Friday the 13th legend. There's tons that we're going to talk about. It's about pattern literacy. That's what we're going to call it. Pattern literacy, not recognition necessarily. It's about understanding how belief moves. Okay? And once you see how one legend was assembled, you start wondering what else was. I'll see you next time. Next Friday. Stay curious, stay grounded. And people, don't let the calendar tell you who you are. Okay? Have a great weekend.
You ever feel a day on the calendar breathe like the ink on the page got a secret to keep? Coffee spills and the radio hums, and the clock on the wall just forgets how to run. You laugh it off, but the feeling stays like a shadow stitched into ordinary days. Someone long ago whispered the claim, and the story grew roots in the back of your brain. It ain't the number, it ain't the day. It's the stories that we carry that refuse to fade away. From the Last Supper table to the midnight sky, the 13th day keeps asking, why? 12 at the table, ordering peace, then the 13th chair and the calm starts to crease. Up in Valhalla, the trickster grins, one extra guest, and the trouble begins. And centuries later, the legend still grows. Hotels skip floors and nobody knows if it's fear or memory playing its part, or an old ghost story living in the heart. It ain't the number, it ain't the day. It's a story that we carry that refuse to fade away. From the cross on Friday to the midnight sky, the 13th day keeps asking why. Maybe it's myth, maybe it's mine, maybe it's patterns we've carried through time. Maybe the calendar's just a mirror we see, reflecting the chaos inside you and me. It ain't the number, it ain't the day, it's the meaning we attach when the world feels strange, and the story keeps moving long after we're gone. The 13th day just keeps singing that same old song. So laugh if you want, knock on wood, but every legend started because someone said it could, and the calendar turns just the same as before, but the 13th day still knocks on the door.